Hello and welcome to Digital Culture, Media and Language Use. I'm Richard Pinner, and today we'll be talking about our second lesson all about memes. So today we'll talk about Is This Loss? Digital Culture and the Ludic, weird and slightly inaccessible world of online discourse. We're going to talk a little bit about a quick recap, first of all. Then we'll do a discussion about the actual humor of internet memes and the way that this creates in-groups or out-groups. Then we'll talk about the specific nature of that type of humor. And then we're going to move into the weaponization of memes. We'll also briefly discuss deepfakes, AI, technology and memes. And we'll also talk about local memes, and I'll give you some very, very local examples. So let's get started. So first of all, a quick recap. What can you remember from last week's lecture, Memes 1? So do you remember who coined the term meme? It was, of course, Professor Richard Dawkins in the book The Selfish Gene, which came out in 1976. So were memes invented in 1976? No. According to Dawkins, the ultimate meme was, of course, religion. So memes have existed since the dawn of human time. But memes have not existed since the dinosaurs, because I don't think dinosaurs had memes. You need to have a human brain for memes to really spread. I think that's Dawkins' point. Anyway, this idea of internet memes and the broader significance has been discussed by Ryan Milner in his fantastic book, The World Made Meme. And he talks about how that idea from Dawkins has been extended into modern day internet memes. As another thing that's relevant is Jenkins' notion of participatory culture. Obviously, part of what makes memes so widely accessible and loved is that anyone can participate in them, and you're not just a consumer of memes, but quite often somebody who actively shares them and maybe even creates them. The book The Ambivalent Internet by Whitney Phillips and Ryan Milner, and Ryan Milner's book are well recommended reading if you're interested in learning more about this subject. Milner talks about memes as a lingua franca. So obviously a lingua franca is an international language used across various cultural borders. And Milner argues that memes are the lingua franca of the internet, and they span a vast geographic and social context. But of course, part of the wider use of memes is their development of internet slang, which is generated from a specific set of subcultures. And there are many ways that internet slang can come about. For example, leet, which uses numbers and letters, or a lot of onomatopoeic and stylized spellings, which will be very familiar to anyone who speaks Japanese, because Japanese also has a lot of onomatopoeia, so does internet slang. Spellings and novel syntactic features are a common feature of internet slang as well, and these are often found in memes. Now, also interesting, although Ryan Milner talks about memes as the lingua franca of the internet, we also can't get away from the fact that they may also kind of behave in the same way as an argot language, which is a secret language designed so that other people will not be able to understand what you're talking about. So, for example, parents might use Pig Latin so that their children can't understand what they're talking about. So these kind of languages, although memes can be a lingua franca, they can also be specifically isolate one group from another. So they have that kind of dual role. Now, obviously, there's a participatory nature of memes, and we talked about this last lesson, the convergence culture, participatory culture, and of course Bird's notion of producers. So people who not just consume but also create the content of the memes, which is something we'll look at near the end of the class. And obviously, Jews's important model of digital culture, this concept of remediation, participation, and bricolage, the way that things are made better, changed, and the bricolage, the sort of DIY aspect of it, you can make your own things quite easily, and they fit within that wider aesthetic. Okay, so moving on now. What's so funny? What is the specific internet humor that we're talking about here? Why are memes, some memes are very weird and hard to understand? So I would argue that, and obviously so does Phillips and Milner argue, that at the most basic level, mimetic humor is a kind of vernacular creativity that blends everyday folk practices like storytelling, but with modern media skills. So for Phillips especially, who was tracing this back from her work on trolls, which we'll talk about in the future lesson, trolls have this kind of mythic aspect in that it's a sort of playfulness that goes all the way back to early folklore. And early folklore, as Jack Zipes talks about, is very based on, it's very subversive. So the idea that you could challenge power structures through local stories, folklore, this is still very much a thing with memes, except that we're dealing with trends that maybe span the entire globe. So it's a kind of globalized version of the folklore. So here's a good example. Sorry, I'm skipping all over because I've just made these slides and I keep forgetting what's coming next. Here's a good example of a little joke. Nice try, aliens. There's no secret underground base on Mars. Written by Hugh Mann. So although this is a real article, it kind of looks like a fake article that aliens maybe wrote to throw us off the scent. And this whole story is encapsulated by somebody just taking a screenshot and doing a little circle around the human and then nice try, aliens. It's a great example of very, very clever, very concise storytelling. So to explain this, the brand of humor. So a lot of internet memes are what we would characterize as random and bizarre. Early popular memes in the US especially trafficked in the random and bizarre, such as pictures of cats with misspelled captions like "Icon has cheeseburger." This is where the novel syntactic features of internet slang come from. There's also little pranks like rickrolling, and this is where the link to trolling culture comes from. And you've also got in-group, out-group being a very particular feature of memes. So you either get it or you don't. And if you don't get it, it's because you haven't spent enough time in that community. You don't understand all the references that are required to find that particular thing funny. So there's a lot of ironic or self-referential things, and this is especially noticeable in the so-called dank memes, which we'll examine in a moment. So here's two examples of two memes that I had to research. So the first one, roses are red, Bitcoin is a token, I'm sorry sir, but, and then I didn't know what the punchline was because I never go to McDonald's because I don't like McDonald's. It's horrible. It's not good for you. But apparently people who go to McDonald's regularly complain that the ice cream machine is always broken. So this word broken rhymes with token. The famous roses are red, violets are blue rhyme has been repurposed here for an internet meme about McDonald's ice cream machine is always broken. And next one. 60s grandma called, 70s gran called, 80s granny called, 90s grandmother called, kids now, and there's just a picture of a boomerang. I didn't get it, but of course a baby boomer is the name of the generation of most of our grandparents. In my case, it's my parents. So the baby boomer generation, anyone kind of born during that huge swelling of the human population in the sort of 1950s. So apparently this is supposed to be funny, boomer called, but nobody calls their grand boomer, so I didn't get that. I had to Google that one. I don't think it's that funny really, but it's a good example of how you don't always get the joke because you're not part of that community or part of that culture. So another aspect which I wanted to draw attention to is the political and subversive aspect of humour. As I said, folklore has always been subversive, as discussed by scholars like Jack Zipes, but memes are also quite subversive, and they tend to challenge political issues head on, and quite often they challenge power structures and make fun of established celebrities and politicians. So this is a key aspect of the subversive humour of memes. And also there's a sort of plausible deniability, and this was an interesting example that I've read about in a paper by Miltner, not Milner, but Miltner, who talks about memes and political practice and discusses the grass mud horse, which is apparently a meme that was very popular in China, and it's actually a children's song. And on the surface it looks like a very innocent children's song, and it's very popular, but actually it has a deeper meaning as a thinly disguised political allegory, come from the fact that many of the pronunciations of these words mean something else if pronounced slightly differently. So this parable then becomes a kind of satirical story about politics. If you're interested, I recommend you read this paper, which is freely available on the internet. So yeah, I wondered, is this why we're always seeing pictures of alpacas and llamas all over the internet? And actually this also, a similar but different meme was popular in South America. So this is kind of why we have a lot of these pictures of these animals. They're a good embodiment of the strange internet humor, but also a good embodiment of the fact that if you see an alpaca, you might not realize that you're actually looking at Chinese satire. So it's a kind of interesting point there. Another famous meme that a lot of people might not know about, if you don't know about memes in detail, was the loss meme. So this is back from 2008. There was a cartoonist called Buckley who created a comic called Control Alt Delete, and it was mainly about gaming culture. And in 2008 he created this panel where one of the main characters, the female lead, Lila, actually suffers a miscarriage. And normally this was a very funny comic, but suddenly it was quite serious. And so because of the switch of tone, this, rather than being taken seriously, became a bigger joke in and of itself and went viral. And basically loss is often loss memes are often hidden inside other memes, and so they're kind of like a Trojan hijack meme. So anything that has these kind of shapes, so two vertical parallel lines and then a vertical and a horizontal line, can be a loss meme. And you've got some examples here. This one's quite meta, of a guy who goes and shoots the guy who's making all the loss memes. And even this one, which seems to be a very interesting explanation about how socialism and capitalism work and how they're perceived to work, is actually a loss meme. And this one as well argues that every 4-panel meme is a loss meme. And Buckley himself in 2018 actually referenced this, by creating a sort of new version of his famous meme, a famous panel, and this time it sort of breaks the fourth wall with the character looking directly at the camera. So that's an example of how you might enjoy a meme but not know that underneath in the iceberg is this bigger, wider culture. You might not realize that you were looking at a lost meme, or you might never have even heard of a lost meme, and yet they might be propagating through many other memes that other people enjoy without getting the full depth of the meaning and the cultural references. So now let's go into dank memes. Now, as I said, there's a sort of ludic sense of humor to a lot of online content. And what do I mean by this? So the internet has a specific brand of humor which is kind of dark, warped, satirical, or ludic. And Dumert talks about this in his article about the performance of a ludic self. And what does ludic mean? So ludic's a very specific type of humor. And we actually are very lucky at Sophia University because the creator or the founder of Ludic Language Pedagogy Journal, James York, actually works part-time at Sophia University. He's mainly based at Meiji, but he comes to us every Thursday. And he's my new best friend as well, although I've only met him once. But a very nice chap. So I recommend, if you want to do more reading about this, you might want to check out the Ludic Language Pedagogy Journal, which is not just a journal but also a community. Now, some examples of this kind of ludic sense of humor. Now, a good example would be Harambe. So Harambe, for a bit of context and explanation, was a gorilla at the San Diego Zoo. And we're going to learn a little bit about the Harambe story from this YouTube video.
Fada is following this story for us in the newsroom. So, Natasha, walk us through, what we know so far.
Well, what we know is that around 4 p.m., zoo officials say they started hearing people screaming around the gorilla enclosure and then quickly sealed off the area. And this is what they saw when they came on the scene, Renee. This 4-year-old boy, they understand, fell 10 to 12 feet down into the moat in the gorilla enclosure. There were 2 female gorillas. They were far away, but this 400-pound male gorilla named Harambe came to the scene. You can see him clearly holding the boy between his legs and was sort of jostling him a little bit. Some have described it as him dragging him through the water, but many say that he wasn't attacking the boy. In fact, he was just playing with him, but we're talking about a 400-pound animal. It could be potentially dangerous. It was described as a life-threatening situation for the boy. So within 10 minutes, the zoo officials had to respond, and they deployed a special team that shot and killed the gorilla. Many have asked, why didn't you just tranquilize the animal? The zoo has responded that, in fact, tranquilizing a 400-pound gorilla would take quite a bit of time for the tranquilizer to take effect, and they couldn't endanger the boy. Here's what the zoo officials are saying today.
They did the right thing, and yet it's a difficult day. The zoo's in the business of taking care of endangered animals, and we certainly don't want to be in a situation where they have to be killed.
So the zoo is saying it was a very sad day for them. They are also saying that the boy has been transported to a hospital where he is being treated for his injuries.
And what kind of reaction are you seeing to this story out there?
As you can imagine, lots of reaction. An endangered animal has been shot and killed at a zoo that was meant to protect him. So many people questioning, what was the zoo's role in all of this? How could a 4-year-old boy get access to the enclosure and be able to fall through? And many people wondering also, why did something like this have to happen while the zoo was still filled with people? Let's have a listen to a woman who was at the zoo at the time.
It's very friendly.
So I think you get the idea of the story there. So basically, sorry, I need to correct myself. It wasn't San Diego Zoo, but Cincinnati Zoo. So this situation was widely reported, but because of the kind of controversial aspect of the gorilla being shot, and people then started to online blame the parent rather than the gorilla. They think that an innocent gorilla had to be shot because of a careless parent. And people were pretty incensed about this online. As you can see, 1,400 comments on this, and the comments are still coming a month ago, even when the event really took place 3 years ago. Now that event actually took place a lot longer than 3 years ago, because this took place in 2008. So, sorry, 2016. I need to check my notes better. 2016 is when the Harambe shooting happened. So this, I think, gives us some indication of how the meme kind of spread out. So people then sort of turned this into a dank meme. So because it was originally a dank meme, but now it's more of a mainstream meme, but it would have originated as a dank meme, which are meme critical memes that reflect on the practice of memeing, and they tend to be deliberately odd or zany. So these started off as fairly non-mainstream dank memes, but then because they became popular, then they no longer would be classed as dank, because they became more mainstream. However, unfortunately, a lot of the Harambe memes that you can see out there, and I've obscured this one because I don't want to share racist memes, but often these memes can become racist or edgy. So dank memes tend to try to be edgy on purpose, and as a result, they often skirt around issues that could be sensitive, like they might use homophobic remarks or transphobic remarks or racist remarks, supposedly in an ironic way, but we'll look at that in a bit more detail later. Now, the term dank actually has its own triple ironic inversion. So the word dank just means unpleasantly moist. But apparently in cannabis culture, this was inverted to mean high quality. And then this has been taken further. So people used to say, oh, that's really bad, when they mean that's really great. Or that's wicked, meaning that's fantastic. So dank has got this same inversion. You say something's dank, what you actually mean is it's really good quality, not really bad quality. But as I said, there is this tendency for dank memes to tend to become a gateway to racist memes and perhaps other taboos. So there was some research done into this by Hen, who looked at various different Reddit subreddits and found that the dank memes tended to have just as much in common with alt-right subs as it did with other meme subs. So you might get quite a bit of exposure and therefore normalizing of these kind of images through dank memes. So just be careful if you're looking at dank memes, because they can expose you to some of the more hateful content that's out there, although they themselves are not necessarily hateful. An interesting example of this, and this is part of the weaponization of memes, would be Pepe the Frog. So an interesting example of how this kind of thing happens, or where you might see kind of gateways from dank memes into more alt-right or hateful areas of content, is Pepe the Frog. So this is a really interesting example. Pepe was originally created in 2005 by an artist called Matt Fury for a webcomic that he made, and Pepe the Frog is just supposed to be a chilled out frog dude, but he was adopted and widely used by alt-right, white supremacist and anti-Semitic racist groups, and he was used as a sort of symbol of their ideologies. And so the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL, actually in 2016 added Pepe as a recognized hate symbol. So if you've ever seen this frog, you might be thinking, why is Pepe a hate symbol? But that is because he was widely adopted, although he was never intended to be such. And Matt Fury has actually created a documentary and various other campaigns recently. He's been criticised for not having done it soon enough, but recently to try to claim Pepe back. And actually, in some of the Hong Kong riots recently, Pepe was used as a symbol of resistance. So his meaning kind of shifts around. Here's a trailer for the documentary about Pepe the Frog and his weaponization and the way he was repurposed as a symbol of hate.
I've just always been into drawing. It takes tons of time to come up with a character, and then eventually it was Pepe. It's a happy little frog. He liked drinking and hanging out. It became a boys' club.
It's one of the funniest comics of the last 10 years.
Feels good, man.
That was the frame that started it all.
PP is the best.
Pepe became a meme. I didn't even know what a meme was.
There were all of these boys trying to own each other on the message boards.
In drops Pepe, right for the taking. He had gone dark.
The white supremacist movement has taken over Pepe the Frog.
Pepe escaped out there into the memosphere.
It got so big that you couldn't reverse it.
It seems incredibly random that this frog is going to represent white supremacy.
Creating memes gave people who had never been involved in politics a way in.
It was like making the internet real.
I'm just a spectator to how things kind of evolve on the internet. It's a window into this dark place.
Then it started to get strange.
Pepe has permanently altered the course of history.
Do you feel any personal responsibility for the bad stuff that has come out of this?
Whatever Pepe meant to all these other people didn't mean the same thing to me. I'm doing everything I can in my power to shut these assholes up.
Answer the question I asked you.
Can we turn a recognized hate symbol into a love symbol? We can change the course of this thing.
Suddenly, Pepe is being used as a symbol of hope.
If you want to escape hell, you can't ignore it. You almost have to go to the center of it.
Pepe the Frog is an omen because it's not going to go away until we hear the message that it has to say.
So how did you pick the name Pepe the Frog?
It sounded like pee-pee. To go pee-pee.
Okay, there you go. As you can see, a very interesting documentary, which goes into the way that Pepe's story and the way that he was taken over by the alt-right and turned into a symbol of hate and trying to turn it around. Now, interestingly, we've seen this before with the way that the Nazis overtook the symbol of the manji and took that. So the original swastika actually in Buddhist teachings is a symbol of peace, and somehow it got inverted by the Nazis. And of course, there are people trying to bring that back around as well. So there's never any question that the manji, that's a symbol of peace around the world, would ever be, it's different from a swastika, of course, but it's interesting the similarities between them. So I think you're sort of seeing something like Pepe is the kind of modern swastika in that sense. Talking about moving things along, so we obviously have an issue with deepfakes as well. So this video, I will put a link to this in the Moodle, but this is a video where you can basically use AI to swap people's faces around, and we're seeing a lot of this obviously would link with fake news and so on. But with AI these days, you can create very realistic videos based on nothing. It doesn't even need to be a deepfake. It can actually just be entirely AI generated. Here's an interesting video from a user of Sora AI, which is the video making component of ChatGPT from OpenAI. So this user, whose name is Fancy Sun, created the following image.
Can I see your ID, sir?
I left it with my father.
Sir! Sir! Stop! Stop! Damn it!
Now, as you can see, it shows a picture of Jesus being pulled over, presumably for speeding or something. When asked to see his ID, he says, "I left it with my father," and then runs away, running over water, the famous Christian myth of Jesus being able to walk on water, and then the cop cannot chase him because he can't walk on water. This video went viral on the Sora platform quite recently, and the user who created it, Fancy Sun, is pretty much the #1 AI slop video maker at the moment. And here's another video that they made, which I thought would be relevant to us, because in this video they resurrected Harambe and changed the story.
Oh my god!
Baby, please help me! Reach for me,
Okay,
sweetheart!
it's okay,
I
it's
got
okay.
you! I got you! Thank you!
Did you see that?
You're safe, I'm here!
Okay, now users were quick to point out the fact that the boy's legs seem to have been broken. But anyway, so that again became very popular. So this was created in 2025. So this shows how the Harambe meme has gone from being a dank meme with a limited user base and supposedly critical of memeing itself, has now become an established and evergreen meme that can be used even as recently as 2025. Another aspect of memes which is fairly new to me is the idea of local memes. So I would like to talk about the town where, very near where I grew up, in Yorkshire, in England, in the north of England. So there's this town called Skipton, which is a lovely town. And there are a lot of articles coming out in the national newspapers about what a nice town Skipton is. So Skiptonians created this meme about yet another move to Skipton article, stay out of my territory. And that's using Walter White from Breaking Bad. So that's an American crime drama being repurposed for a local meme just specific to one small town with a population of fewer than 5,000. Skipton Memes has its own Facebook page, which is where I got most of these images. Here's a funny one which I get, and I find this hilarious, but I bet none of you can understand what the hell is going on here. Tourists checking out the growlers in Stanforth's window. Small, medium, large, oof size. So what we're looking at here is a meme about pork pies. In English slang, growler, this might be northern slang, growler is a slang word for a pork pie. Stanforth's is one of the most famous pork pie shops in Skipton, and it does big pies. And so normal people living in Skipton are fed up of the tourists hanging outside the window of this pie shop going on and on about how big the pies are. So this is a specific meme. If you live in Skipton, not if you've been to Skipton, if you live in Skipton, you find this funny. Another one that I thought was very much worthy of mention was using memes as a social commentary. So a man called Dean Majors, who works in Skipton, had complained to Yorkshire Water several times about a leak, and they didn't do anything about it. So he created a meme of himself swimming down the leak, and then finally they sent out people to fix the problem. But it was using memes as a way to get more attention to a problem, and using memes as a social commentary. So this is similar to the weaponization of memes, I think. and the way that memes would be used for political satire. This doesn't apply to national satire, but also local council related issues as well. So that's an interesting aspect I thought you might find interesting. So Skipton has its own memes. What about Tokyo, this big city that we live in? Does it have its own memes? Not many, really, because I think one of the things with big cities, they're already more connected to the large international or big connected communities. So whilst you do get plenty of local memes specific to one big city, perhaps less than you would with a smaller local place, because in a big city you're more connected probably to the sort of international memes or the more mainstream memes, whereas if you're living in a small village, having your own memes, they show again part of in-group belonging. So just because you live in Tokyo, I think you feel more part of an international or a large scale community, whereas if you live in a small town or countryside village, then probably you want to feel the belonging to that smaller in-group. That's just a theory though, that's just my working theory. The other thing I wanted to talk about was AI generated memes. You can actually use AI to generate memes now, and it will just come up with something crazy that the computer thinks is funny, which I think is very much the opposite of these local memes, these very small group memes that we're seeing. So going back to the small groups, can you tell where this meme was created? You see it from this entrance. Building number 14. And this meme, first period at Kioi building, scenes of charging students. And this one as well. Graduation, 1 more year. My thesis is out of control. These were all made by students at Sophia, students of mine who I was teaching either on my writing workshop class or in this fantastic class, Special Topics in Language Studies. So I would like to extend the challenge to you as well. If you make a meme, you get A, maybe. So I had a writing class where I got my students to create various memes, and there were some really, really funny ones. This one in particular, Avada Kedavra with Putin, I thought was quite good. And I wanted to use that in an article I was writing about technology and motivation and memes, but the editor had me remove it, so I replaced it with this one. But anyway, I think that memes are great, and they're not just funny jokes on the internet. Obviously, there's a lot more to them. So now it's time for you to have a go at making your own meme and post it in the coffee room. And I hope you've enjoyed learning about memes. And next time you see a funny meme, you'll think about me and share it with me, because I like to collect memes if I can. So what we've talked about really today is the second half of the memes lesson. We discussed how memes develop and how the sense of humor of memes is very specific, very dark often, tends to be satirical or to challenge power structures, tends to be subversive, and in that way it has links with folklore or mythology talking, similar to how troll culture has this, according to Whitney Phillips. We also talked about the weaponization of memes and memes as a symbol that could be repurposed or have its meaning changed, much like the swastika. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed that. So next lesson will be an in-person class, and we'll have an interactive review and a chance to look back at what you've learned so far in the course, and we'll meet up in person. But until then, thank you very much for your attention, and see you later, alligator. And you may or may not know that this alligator and this man kicking it are AI generated and became a meme as well. So all good in the world of memes and alligators. Thank you very much, and see you. Goodbye.